Hi everyone, my name is Nonjabulo. Welcome to the channel. I have a word that I want to share with you today. So basically, I was seeking the Lord regarding my situation because I found myself being under the attack, actually being attacked by the enemy. So at some point, I think I came to the realization that it might happen that I lost the presence of God in my life. So that's why I found myself in the situation where I'm under the attack, and I was so confused, so panicking. um, I had this sense of panicking, thinking that I'm running out of time. I need to act quickly. I need to do this. I need to do that. And being so confused. So I thought, you know what? I'm feeling so confused. And it's like I don't have peace anymore in my life. It's like I lost that connection with God. So I had to go back to God and just take some time and worship God so that He will reveal to me what happened. And indeed, when I think about it, um, there are things that sometimes we say, because I remember I said stuff when I was so confused, especially when things didn't go according to what I thought they would. Because sometimes when God say things in our lives, we jump into conclusion thinking that, okay, since God said this, so obviously it will end like that. Whereas God have a plan for everything. You might think this will lead you to a certain way, whereas God knows the direction. Maybe the direction that God have for you, it's an opposite direction than what you think. We cannot fathom, in fact, what God have for us until we let Him lead us to that purpose that He have for us. But sometimes, because we are humans, we tend to jump into conclusion and assume that things will happen this way, whereas God have the opposite. So that what happened in my life, because I was thinking, oh, okay, since this thing is happening like this, that means it will go like that. Whereas I was wrong. When it doesn't go according to what I've planned, and I tend to panic, and I tend to speak things, and I tend to doubt things that God say, or things that God said upon my life. And I'm thinking, okay, is this going to happen? What's going to happen with this next promise that God said? What's going to happen with that? At that time I was just wondering, but not letting God lead me to what He wants out of me. So as I was praying to God about it, and asking for forgiveness, to go back and have that connection with God, that same connection that I felt it was lost. So God revealed to me the weight about His children, actually. Because as we walk in this journey with God, we need to depend on Him for directions. There are stuff that sometimes we find ourselves going through those things, facing attacks, not even knowing where those attacks coming from. I remember when I was praying to God, God showed me the things that we suffer the most, especially when it comes to our breakthrough in our careers, in our finances. But we don't even know where they come from. We become so frustrated, and whenever we try to go forward, one step forward, it's like you take 10 steps or 20 steps backward. You don't seem to break through. It's like there is this rock that you keep on hitting and bounce back. You hit this rock and you bounce back. You don't seem to find a breakthrough, especially in your career at this time, because that's what God was speaking about, the careers, the finances, of which is something that we need, because we need those things to survive. But what God was saying to me is that some of these things are generational curses. You find out that you're facing the problem of seeing success in your business, in your career, whatever the case might be, and you don't know where it comes from. God showed me back at home, because yeah, it applies to me, but also God wanted me to share with you, because most of his people, they're going through this. Most of his people, they're going through this situation at the moment. He showed me back home the situation, what was happening. I remember that what my father used to do, he liked farming. He would do farming, especially with chickens, the poultry farming. So he will buy different types of chicken, raise them, having even houses. At first, when he started, the business boomed. It was like on a boom, like it sprang. The chickens were all over, and for him, it was a success, because that's what he wanted. He wanted to have chickens. He wanted to have that sort of business. He went on with cows, and it lasted only for months while the business was booming, but it lasted only for months. And then out of the blue, it just disappeared. It vanished, and then it was over about it. Not only that, poultry farming, but also with cattle and all that, it disappeared. He was struggling to get it back to where it was. He was struggling. He struggled until he just let it go of it. He left it. And as a result, he just, doing nothing, basically. He gave up on those things on the business side that he was trying to do. So God brought me that in my attention, that actually some of the things that I am facing with at the moment, that I'm fighting with, they are not just for me, they from a generation. That's what they struggle with, unfortunately, and they failed, if I may put it like that. They failed to break through that ceiling. So whatever they were doing at that time, it just disappeared, and then it was just it. And at the moment, he's old. He cannot go back there and do that business. That means it was the end of it without seeing the success. What God was saying is that, unfortunately, we are called to break the chains, to break the curses that is upon our family. It's a generational thing that has been happening. But as we are here as children of God, God has called us to break those things. But for us to break those things, we need to understand where they're coming from and how are we going to break them. For instance, I remember that at that time when my father was struggling, he was trying by all means, consultations, going to traditional healers, trying to find help, because it's not easy to see everything that you worked hard for just disappeared out of the blue, and you don't know what's the matter, what's happening. Everything, they just die, the chickens die, and everything just out of nowhere. You don't even know what is it that's happening. So I remember that he was up and down, consulting people, trying to get help so that people would help him, but it didn't help. So what God was saying is that sometimes we need to understand what weapons do we have at our hands at the moment, because the weapons that we are given are not the same as what our generation, or let me say the generation before us, that was using. They used something else that didn't work for them. They ended up failing because they were using something that was not relevant to the fight, because they didn't realize that they are fighting spirit. It's a spiritual fight. So they need to tap into their spiritual weapon for them to be able to overcome those evil spirit fights that they face. So as I was busy facing these things, I also didn't know. And at some point I remember imagining myself like thinking, who was successful at home with doing these things? Who was successful at business? Who was successful in their careers? When I look at the family line, and I found myself being trapped on those things, being so negative because I couldn't pick up who was successful. But God is saying at this time, it's different. He is our fighter. He is our weapon, our strength. He is above everything. We have God to fight for us in those spiritual attacks that the enemy has been using. That what has been happening also in my family. There have been this stronghold from the enemy. And it's worse because you find out the witchcraft, it's coming from the enemy, but the enemy is within the family line. So with those things that they do to you, like the other family members that they doing in your family, it goes with you wherever you go. So even when you go to the workplace, it will be easier for you to attract the other witchcrafters, or the witches, whatever. I don't know the appropriate word, but yeah, it's easier for you to attract the other witches who will perform witchcraft upon your life to add on what those family members started. So even in the workplace, you will experience the same thing. Wherever you go, people will just find it easier to just perform witchcraft, to even go an extra mile to perform witchcraft without any reason. And when you look at it and you think, why would so and so do this to me? You have no reason. And that person have no reason, but the person is attracted to you. He or she sees you as a threat, and the person will go an extra mile just to perform witchcraft that will set you back, that will set you for failure. That what happened, it comes from the family, but it continues as you try to move in every sphere of your life, finances, relationship. You will find these things because they were done to you by the family members back maybe when you were younger or as you grow up. But these things, they go with you, they follow you. That's why you attract so many witchcraft from different people now, not even from your family members, but with other people, your colleagues, your friends, whoever that you encounter with. They will feel that eager to just, go an extra mile and perform witchcraft so that you won't progress. You won't see progress in whatever that you are doing. I don't want to scare you, but these things are serious and they are real. They're happening in our lives. We find ourselves being stagnant. We are in this same position. We can't move forward. As we try to move forward, it's like we're moving backward. We are falling. So we need to understand what the enemy is using. Unfortunately, the enemy this time, it's using the spirit. It's evil spirits. You can't see those things. Sometimes you will dream about those things, but you can't see, you can't touch them. So that spirit You cannot fight the spirits with a stick, for instance. For example, you cannot. You need to tap in the spirit so that you will be able to fight that spirit. And at this moment we have God. So there's no need to be scared. We have God who will help us to break through. You're not called to walk the same journey as the generation before you, but you are called to break through from those chains, from those yoke of the enemy. Sometimes we need to understand the value of the weapon that we have at hand. We need to understand the value, we need to understand the greatness of our God when we face the spiritual attacks, the spiritual fights. That's the only way we will win the fight against the enemy. It's in us understanding the power of God in delivering us, in helping us break through, to help us break through in those rock that has been holding us back for so many times, for so many years, for so many months. I don't know how long you've been struggling, but this is the case. It's only God who will be able to take us through those things. It doesn't matter how long you've been hitting the rock, you bounce back, hitting the rock, bounce back. But once you realize the power of the weapon that you have at hand, it will be easier for you to fight the enemy. And you're not going to fight the enemy, you will conquer the enemy because God is mighty in battle. He always wins. He never lost any battle. We have God as our spiritual weapon. We need to tap into those strength, power that God gave unto us, the authority that God has given us, the power, the strength. Those are the things that we need to tap on for us to be able to fight the schemes of the enemy. And as you are fighting the schemes and the plans of the enemy, God might not remove those things completely. But if God is on our side, we know that we will conquer. We will break through even in the presence of the enemy. That's why the word says, He set the table before my enemies. Because sometimes God does not remove the enemy, but God will set you for success in the presence of your enemies. The power, it is in us realizing the power and the greatness of the weapon that we are given, which is our God. Thank you so much for your time.